Welcome to Supply Circles, stories from the innovators, disruptors and improvers in supply chain management today. Brought to you by AI Group.
Hello, I'm James Scotland and this is Supply Circles. I'm coming to you today from Yunganbar country, and this is the podcast that asks the question, how can we in Australia build sustainable and resilient supply chains at a time when we are implementing the improvements to our supply chains through digitalisation, decarbonisation, and minimising our risk through diversification. You know, once upon a time, businesses did everything in-house, everything. They even had the tea ladies and they had mechanics and cleaners and all sorts of stuff. But now we outsource everything, and that has built end-to-end supply chains. As an operational manager, we used to manage the whole operation, but now we manage outsourced businesses. We manage suppliers and buyers and all sorts of things. So this podcast looks at how we can improve that end-to-end supply chain through and make it resilient and sustainable. Today I want to talk about how we can engage our customers. In recent podcasts, we have heard of the need to manage the extreme customer-facing part of our business. We heard of the need for an integrated brand strategy. Thanks, David. And then we heard of ways to improve our success with bids, contacts, and tenders. Thanks, Leanne. And then we heard of the need to innovate and how to do it. Thanks to another David. What's all this got to do with supply chains? What's all this got to do with how we manage our business? Well, as I said, first off, we need to manage end to end, but also on a day-to-day basis. Years ago, when I moved from being a salesperson to being an operational manager and then a general manager, I found that I was selling much more than I ever had before. I had to sell to my staff, I had to sell to my bosses, I had to sell to my suppliers, and I had to sell to my customers. I was selling more often and to more people, all sorts of different things. My then boss said, you know, business is a person activity. It's a person-to-person activity, and you need to be able to sell your ideas. So everyone's a customer. And what do we do with these customers? Well, today I want to put it all together. Today I want to work out how to create highly efficient supply chains by aligning the whole supply metric to the whole supply chain to one metric, the only one that counts, all of your customer. My guest is a customer. She's an expert in customer and what they need, a specialist in aligning intent with reality. My guest is the always engaging and interesting Leanne Farnwort. Hello, Leanne.
Hi, James. How are you?
I'm really good. Where are you coming from today? I'm as I said, in Yunganbar country, which is Surfers Paradise. Where are you coming from?
I'm coming from Bungjung land in northern New South Wales.
Oh, I love that place. Hey, it's interesting though. I haven't been down there since before COVID. I used to go there all the time. It's only about an hour away. And then, I just stopped going down that way. I guess that's there's a changing mental approach, I suppose. We just forgot to keep doing it. That's a good intro to customers. That's what we do. We change our minds, don't we?
Absolutely.
Tell us about yourself. How did you end up in North New South Wales?
So look, I was actually born and bred in the region and grew up on a farm in the area, and then went to the big smoke as a young 18-year-old to go and study design at university. And so I headed up to Brizzy and finished a degree in design, and that led to about a decade or more working in brand studios and in graphic design, in advertising and marketing, and saw me travel internationally and work and live in Greece for a period of time, where I worked for a global branding agency called Interbrand, and I was working with a sister company in Athens, which was an experience and a half.
Wow. Yeah.
So that took me then back to Australia, where I continued in the design space. And I guess I've been someone who's always looked forward, a bit of a future thinker and planner. And I thought, how am I going to achieve a life goal of becoming a parent and becoming a mother if I'm working around the clock all the time? And so that led me to build my own business, where in my 20s and into my 30s, in my 30s, had a business where I set up what is now very common, but back then wasn't common at all, set up a business that relied on remote staff. And I engaged with a highly unemployable, I say that tongue-in-cheek, group of people who decided to put parenthood as their number one job. And they weren't able to go into the city or go into town and work. And so they found it really hard to get work. And so I used that pool of people to build a very high-performing and remote team, and build quite a good little business that helped me to achieve my goal, which was to buy time to become a parent much later on. And after achieving that goal, I then started working with Deloitte as a consultant, where I was fortunate enough to meet you and some other magnificent people working for the federal government's Entrepreneurs Program. And in that role was working initially as a business advisor, and then I was like a pig in mud in my ideal role, which was a business design advisor. And here we are today, coming off the back of that and working now as a consultant.
Yes, I remember when we met. I don't know if you do, but I met you in a cafe just next to the Pullman, opposite the MCG. Yeah. And I think we had 40 minutes to chat or something or other. And we talked so much, I almost missed my flight to wherever I was going that day. I was in the taxi trying to remember how fast Tullamarine. Am I going to get there in time? Oh my goodness, I've chatted too long to Leanne. But it was good because that life experience that you just described meant that you were actually closely engaged with the concept of a customer. I mean, you were dealing with people who had work balances, who were challenges, who were trying to be mums, who were trying to manage their marriage, their life goals, and their job. Do you think that's true? Did you learn a lot by trying to manage these people who had the challenges themselves?
Oh, absolutely. I think the school of life is by far the best school. The experience I had being a founding director of my own business, just taught me so much. And to this day, I can feel the emotion, feel the things that excited me, feel the things that challenged me, feel the things that lit me up or I found quite difficult. And so when I got into this role down in Victoria, working with businesses, the thing that, was just so common across all of it was that they're all human beings trying to do something for some reason. They've got an end goal in mind as a human being. They are facing the similar challenges. Some of them might have an extra 0 or 2 or 3 to their name than the other person that I might speak to. But there was just this common thread, and a common thread that would come up would be, people are doing it because they're very driven. They see an opportunity. Often they are their own customer when they begin. There's a gap in the market or there's an idea that they have and they think, what, I can solve this problem. And then they get into business and become an expert in that space, and they're no longer their customer. They're a business owner. They're an expert in their field. And I guess...
Yeah, they become driven by process and systems and their knowledge, and forget about what their customer knows and doesn't know, and the customer's not interested in systems and processes. They're interested in a solution.
Absolutely. And I think, we sort of, I often liken it to, and I guess I always try and simplify these things down when I'm talking with clients to say, once upon a time you may or may not have been your own customer, but at the start of your business journey, you were walking alongside really, really close, and you You understood what was going on. You had your ear to the ground. You were feeling it. You were hearing it. You were responding to a need. But as business grows, and I experience this myself, you suddenly get an admin person in and you get 10 people below you or however many people, and you become more and more distant from what's going on. And then we're sitting in this space of being an expert where, well, we've been there, we've done that. We think we know the answer, but we forget that time's ticked along, the environment has changed, so have potentially the needs of those customers, but we're still solving a problem that we had back up the road years ago. And we've got to remember that we need to make sure that we're staying alongside that customer and keeping our ear to the ground for today. What's happening right now?
And the buggers keep changing all the time. They keep changing their mind and their needs. I think, I can put my hand on my heart and say I was at my best as an operations manager when I'd just come off the road as a sales person, because I was making all the decisions based on what I knew about the customer. But over time, as you say, you just get so bogged down in the systems and processes, you kind of lose contact with that. Which brings me to this point of, in my experience, most businesses want to be customer focused. They say they are. Sometimes they even believe they are, but they're not actually always, as you say, as customer focused as they should be. Is it just because of time, or is it just why is that?
One word I would say is assumption. We assume we know. It's a really interesting. It's a really interesting question, and often when I'm working with people, I'll say, tell me, what are the numbers of your business today? I'm sitting around a room with a group of leaders, and I know that if I ask any of them, they could tell me financially where this business sits right now. They know exactly what's going on. But when I ask them about the human numbers, that's a very different question for them to answer. They might have They might have asked some questions, like you said, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and they think that those numbers are still the same. The human number is still the same. And it seems to them to make sense that, well, of course it's the same, but you wouldn't assume your financials have remained the same. So why would a human whose needs are constantly shifting and changing, why would they remain the same? And so going back to that...
What do you mean by the human number? It's a metric, obviously, but...
The human need, the understanding of where the human being is at. Yeah. And so I guess I encourage organisations to say, well, you make decisions for your business based on your numbers, but what about making decisions for your business based on an understanding of what is happening for your critical customer groups, what problems they need solved, and how you are solving them? Yeah.
We've talked about this a bit during this podcast about COVID, where we saw that companies that recognised that all aspects of their business were a customer, that their suppliers were a customer, their staff was a customer, and their market was a customer, they came out of COVID stronger than just the businesses that saw things as a cost and cut costs in order to survive the disaster, the disruption. It seems to me that the businesses that see as a people endeavour, and every person is someone they need to engage with and understand, are a stronger business.
Absolutely. And, working with organisations during that, the heightened stages of that pandemic, one of the critical things that we would say to people is stay close to the customer, understand what is going on for them right now. What are the problems that they're facing? What are the challenges that they're facing? Where are they stumbling? Where are they falling over? Peter Drucker famously says, businesses exist to serve the needs of a customer. So what are those needs? Those needs aren't static. Those needs are ever changing. And those that stay close to the customer and continue to unpack and remain curious around what those needs are proven to be far more successful.
How have you seen the needs of customers change over the years?
It's an interesting question. I think if we look at just the way that the environment around us continues to change and at a rate of knots. You know, we have technology that is advancing so rapidly, and the convenience that comes, you know, to us as a result of that sets an expectation in people around what they should be able to receive and achieve. You know, look at Uber for an example, and how that disrupted its market. So people are, on one hand, able to access everything they need potentially out of the phone or at a click of a button. And so they're expecting, well, if I can do that here, I should be able to do that in all aspects of my life. And that then puts pressure on organisations to say, okay, what am I doing to meet those needs? What am I doing to make life easier for the customer, and ensure that I'm keeping up in all that I'm delivering as an organisation?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a business owner that likes looking at your phone and seeing how long it's going to be before your pizza gets delivered and that it's coming down the street, recognise that your customers are expecting the same access to your business.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to believe that it would be anything other than that, I think this sort of having a Kodak moment, just crossing your fingers and hoping it'll all go away.
Yeah. I know that's the point of digitalisation, digitalising your supply chain all as much as you possibly can, because it's just an expectation now, you know. And as AI comes in, we're going to need to work out how to balance people and machines a lot more than we have. I think you're right. Don't hide from it. Embrace it.
Absolutely.
Where does storytelling fit into that new world? Because you and I both love the concept of storytelling in business.
So I guess, you know, you made this comment around data and technology, and I guess businesses have a lot of access to data, or have a lot of data at their fingertips. Having worked with so many businesses, very few of them are using that data, and those that are often stop at what that data provides from a what's going on here perspective. So they identify, all right, well, this is what's happening from the data. I can see we're having a drop off at this point, or customers are pausing at this point, or whatever. You asked me the question around storytelling, and I guess the angle that I always like to take is to ask this critical question of why, and to remain very, very curious. And you know, so often with businesses, we ask them, when was the last time that you actually engage with your customer to find out what life's like being them? You know, or tell me how well do you actually know what's going on with those customers of yours? And if I may tell a story, James, I worked with this. I've just worked with so many.
I love your stories. No, you tell a story. I love your stories.
Work with so many magnificent businesses, and there was this one fabulous gentleman who had been in business for about 40 years, and he was handing the business over to his the younger generation. And we were I was doing some workshops with them to help them set strategy. And at the start of this work, obviously one of the critical questions was, who are your key customers and whose problem do you actually solve? And I asked them to start documenting down, well, who did they believe their key customer groups were? And what were their problems right now? It was very interesting that just a simple question like that, and starting to dig around in that space, made them realise, I don't actually know. I don't know that much depth in what's going on with my customer. And as I went through this process, and we had started to establish this foundation of strategy, I said to them, I need you to go and test what you believe to be true about your customer to make sure that the assumptions that you have here are validated. And I want you to do that in a way that you go and actually just engage in conversation. Now, these people were, a number of the people, and particularly the owner of this business, had been the face of sales. And he said, Leanne, I know my customers. I can tell you all about them. I said, well, tell me. And as we started to dig again, we landed on these were all assumptions that hadn't been validated for quite some time. So I asked him to go and engage in conversation, and I asked these leaders, there are about 6 of them, to go and engage in conversation with some critical customer groups to understand what was happening with them from the perspective of what job is it they're actually trying to do? What functional jobs do they need to do? What social jobs do they need to do? So how do they want others to feel about them? What emotional jobs are they trying to do? How do they want to feel about themselves as a result of the work they're trying to do? Where do they trip up? What pains and frustrations are they experiencing? And what are they ultimately trying to achieve? And I set them this task with an approach to asking questions. And it was one that encouraged storytelling. They were open-ended questions. They were questions that asked them to talk about lived experience in a way that did not ask for a yes or a no answer, a black or a white answer. We wanted this beautiful colours in the middle to start to inform more. So these guys went out and they had these conversations, and the gentleman who had owned the business for 40 years came back a month later, and I said, tell me, how'd you go? And he said, Leanne, I'm gobsmacked. And I started just laughing.
You weren't surprised, were you?
I said, tell me about this. Why are you gobsmacked? That's a word that doesn't get used enough. And he said, in my entire career, I have never had a conversation like that before. I learnt more in that 30 to 45-minute conversation than I've learnt in a long time. And we talked about this and we unpacked it. And we unpacked it and said, well, typically in business, we go into conversation in a way that we are trying to funnel people down a certain path to do what we need them to do to make a sale.
Yeah.
But in this approach of asking them about themselves, to unpack what's actually going on, to understand why are we challenged, why, digging down and understanding the deeper causes, we're learning so much more about these human beings and the human need. And as a business, that information is critical because it helps us to understand what do they value? What is it that they need to achieve success? And as a business, if we can align our solutions to that, then we're creating products and services that are very sticky and very desired by that audience. And so
business managers had a light bulb moment when they've suddenly realised, hey, I haven't got the whole story. There is some great opportunities here for me that I've discovered by talking to my client, my market.
Yeah, a colleague and I worked with an organisation that produced food products out of ethically harvested animal.
Okay.
And this organisation had believed in ensuring that they used all of the animal, and really believed in respecting the animal. And so they had produced a product that they were selling direct to the consumer that was a wearable. And, they weren't in that market, and they were wondering, how are we going to make this sell? We believe there's something in it, but we don't know how to make it sell.
Uh-huh. So they were in sort of food, and they've suddenly discovered fashion is an option there.
Absolutely, yeah. And so it's a really unusual combination, And so we went through this process of getting in some of the early adopters of this product, and we interviewed them. And we had the owners of the business sitting and observing the conversation that played out. And we were trying to understand more about these customers because they were very different. It wasn't like they were sort of all 40-year-olds, mothers of something or other. They were all very different age groups, living in very different locations. But as we started to explore these customers, we realised that what actually mattered to these guys was consistent, and what mattered to them was, in fact, where this product had come from. They wanted to know that the product had been ethically harvested. They wanted to know the ethos of the organisation, and they wanted to know that the lifespan of that product would outlive the majority of the market and be repairable or be recyclable. And so this owner, who certainly was not the customer, suddenly got this insight into, wow, I'm realising that the entire journey of this product and how it's made creates the value in the eyes of my customer. And that is, in fact, what they're buying. Huge aha moment for this owner, and a huge opportunity for them to look at these moments in the journey of the customer and where they can really add incredible value.
We spoke to Adam Blake from Blundstone Boots, who talked about that, 100 years of making safety boots and hard-wearing boots, and suddenly they discovered that there was a market in Europe for those boots as a fashion boot. But it wasn't really sudden. They just went and asked. Yes. They went and investigated, did exactly what you're talking about. That's a great story.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the stories because, as I said in the intro, business today is, if I sell my product or service into your business, it is fitting into an overall complex matrix of supply chain. It's fitting into an ecosystem that you're managing, and then you're selling your product into another ecosystem that they're managing, and so on and so on. So it's not really a sale in that sense, are we? We're talking about a real engagement, a multi-dimensional engagement, be it a customer who's buying from me or a supplier who's selling into my environment. We're trying to understand how all this fits together.
Absolutely. We're trying to understand, if you think about a product or a service, and we think about mapping out the journey that product or service takes from before, upstream, downstream, and you say, all right, well, whose hands has it touched? And what are they trying to achieve in the journey that they are taking with that product or service, or and how do they know that they've achieved what they're trying to achieve in that journey? And when we start to understand what are the moments that each of those people along that journey experience either delight or sheer frustration, as a business, we've got these opportunities to say, okay, well, what can we do to create improvement? And what can we do to add value through the eyes of that person experiencing that moment, And in that assessment, who are the critical players for this business? Because we will come in touch with so many, but who are the key players that are going to drive growth for this organisation? And how can we really focus on adding value to those people to ensure that this business moves forward in the way that we're wanting it to, aligned with those people and those customer groups?
How do you manage all the different priorities in your life?
With great difficulty, James.
And that's the answer. That's the honest answer, right? That's what everyone wants to hear. So we'll go back to it. All right, let's go to a break. Before we do, you raised it. You're a mum, and you're a business owner, and you've got a lot of things going on in your life. No doubt, a partner, a daughter, a sister, a friend. You've got all these different competing needs in your life, and you still want to be successful at all of them, especially in business. How do you balance it all? How do you get that life balance? Tell me the secret.
James, with great difficulty. I'd love someone to tell me what the secret is.
I know. And it varies all the time, doesn't it? Sometimes, you need to focus on the business because you're working on a big contract and you're doing 20 hours. And then other times, you got to say, I've got to step away a little bit because the kids are sick or, well, my mum needs me or my dad needs me. Yeah, it's always different priorities. And all the people in your life, all the customers and all your staff are the same thing, aren't they?
Absolutely. We've all got competing priorities and things that matter more, and it's a constant juggle. I am yet to meet somebody who says they've got it completely sussed.
I'm sure everyone listening will say, yeah, I'm hearing you, Leanne, I'm hearing you. Let's go to a break. We'll come back shortly.
If you have supply chain or business improvement challenges, contact AI Group's Business Improvement and Growth Hub. The Big Hub is a library of practical and relevant resources designed to assist member businesses to grow and improve. The Big Hub also includes an extensive network of experienced, pre-qualified business improvement consultants. For more details, contact big@aigroup.com.au. That's big@aigroup.com.au.
I'm chatting to Leanne Farnwort about customers and connecting with people in your business. Before the break, you're talking about talking to your customers and trying to find out their story and their needs. When I was talking to David Schloeffel on this podcast, a friend of ours, he said that he thinks surveys are completely useless. They don't tell you the story. That you actually have to go and talk to people. Sounds like you're agreeing with David, which is something he'll be pleased with.
He will be happy. It's interesting. I think there's a place for everything, but I believe that we must dig down to understand why. Surveys can tell us what is going on, but we need to understand why. And by going and observing, participating, or just going and having a chat like a journalist to try and understand a little bit more, we can unpack so much more. And it's interesting when I put that forward to people and say, I want you to go and have a chat to your customers, their first response is, really? Do I have to?
I don't want to talk to a customer. No, they'll tell me they hate my business, by the way. They'll say awful things to me, which is not going to be true.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a frightening prospect, You're thinking, what are they going to say? And I think back to another beautiful client that I worked with, and these were these big, tough blokes who you wouldn't think would be scared of too much. And I put forward that challenge. I said, I want you to go and interview some customers. And I don't just want you to talk to the raving fans. I want you to talk to people who are really supportive of what you do. I want you to speak to some people that have gone lukewarm, and I want you to speak to some people who've gone cold. And I want you to go and understand more about what's happening. Go and ask them some open-ended questions, start to understand the story. And this one particular gentleman said to me, I can think of someone already who is going to be someone who's gone a bit cold on us, and it scares me already, the thought of talking to them. I said, well, give it a go. So he went and spoke to this woman who I believe was a third of his height and tiny little thing, but he was petrified of her. And he said, Leanne, I can't believe how that conversation went. I went in and I asked questions in the way that you'd asked, open-ended questions where I was not trying to get funnel her down a path to answer the way I wanted her to. I just listened. I remained really curious, and I could not get her to stop talking. It was such a great conversation. And he said, I actually found out that yes, there'd been some moments of dissatisfaction, but in asking these questions of this lady, she valued that engagement with me so much. And it actually built so much trust between us because I came to her and first and foremost said, I really value your opinion. As an organisation, we are trying to improve, and your opinion matters. I'd love you to be as honest as you possibly can, and I want to hear your experience. And he then went about asking these questions. The result of that conversation, and this is not what I put him forward to do and suggested would be the result, but the result was he was then asked to put forward a proposal for the next project that she had. So it had built the relationship in a very positive way because he had created that time and that space to speak with her.
Yeah, you've probably heard me say before, certainly many people have, that this is all about Socrates. There's the philosopher, Socrates said the best way to get knowledge is to ask. You don't need to think about it yourself. You need to just go and ask more questions and go deeper. That sort of ask the 5 questions, why. And the way to get there is to actually be wanting to hear the answer. That's the point. No, don't ask the questions. Be wanting to hear and understand the answer.
Absolutely. And to remove the pressure to know the answer, to allow the space to explore. Yeah. And in business, we are the experts in our field. That's why we're in that business. We've got a solution to provide a customer. But what we've got to avoid, and you hear Steve Jobs speaking about, rather than trying to add the bells and whistles to the solution, what are the features and benefits I can plug into this thing? Flip the thinking and say, where can we take the customer? What can we give the customer? And the first point to start at is just understand them. Create space to understand so that you know what problem you're actually trying to solve.
Yeah, and I think as we've been saying throughout this conversation, it doesn't just have to be like the paying customer. It can also be a supplier. I did plenty of projects in supplier improvement projects where I went and asked businesses what they thought about the buyer, and it was invariably completely different from what the buyer thought the relationship was. One famous one was the buyer said, we're all about quantity. We will do anything to ensure we buy good product. And you go and talk to the suppliers and say they're all about cost cutting. They're not interested in quality at all.
Absolutely.
So this disconnect of not understanding how to talk to people, how to really listen.
Absolutely. And I use that, I use the term customer as a label in this context, but it's this curious mindset to not just assume that you know the answer, to understand what is happening in the shoes of that person that you are working with. It's all about leave your shoes at the door, take them off, leave your solutions at the door and go and put on their shoes and stand in them, look around, experience what's going on so that you can get a greater understanding.
All this takes time, though.
It certainly does.
Is it worth the expense?
Yeah, great question. Let me share with you one example of so many. You have businesses that come to you and say, we have spent millions on developing this product and it's just not sticking. And we're improving this and we're, working with these members of the team and we're trying to, ramp up the features and benefits of this. And we would come in and work with these organisations and say, let's just stop for a tick. You've got your product all nutted out, but let me just ask you again, who is the customer? What problem are you solving for them? When you're looking at all these features and benefits you're putting in, do they even care about them? Where are you allocating spend? Is it on the things that actually matter? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great insight. Yeah, I think that's so true. We spend all this time in trying to improve our operations and our products and our services and even our marketing and our messaging without actually going and saying to the people who are affected by what we're doing, what do you think? What's your input? So, yeah.
Absolutely. And sitting with a piece of paper and some sticky notes or having a conversation, yes, to your point, it might take a little bit more time. but let's think about the amount of money that we can spend developing products and services without a true understanding of what's actually going on, and where and why it's going to succeed or fail. Sometimes
it's as easy as saying we will deliver on full in time 90% of the time, and maybe the customer will say, I'd rather you've delivered on full in time 100% of the time if we change what the parameters are.
Absolutely.
It'll make my life easier if we have a more honest relationship than what we've got at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was just going to share with you working with a manufacturing client where they, again, they're trying to get the team to buy into this organisation, trying to get the team to innovate and make change in their organisation and move this organisation forward. And when team were empowered with the knowledge of the customer and the problem that was being solved for the customer, and I use the term customer again as a label on the people that they were solving a problem for,
Sure.
It got to the point where internally the systems and the processes within this organisation changed, because they were asking on the workshop floor, you're wanting to bring in an improvement, and the head of the workshop said, tell me, out of all of the people that this business serves, who is this serving and what problem is it solving for them? And whoever brought the innovation or the change or the idea for improvement into that workshop, they had to be able to say whose problem it was that they were fixing. And if they couldn't, the workshop manager didn't want to know about it. So it really empowered the team to start thinking about how do I think more deeply about this? And how do I really align these solutions to solve a problem?
And that's how you build more sustainable, more resilient supply chains. I mean, we had this problem during COVID when people were saying, where buyers were saying to their suppliers, can you deliver on time? Can you still deliver to the time frames you said? And they were saying, yeah. When actually, in fact, they couldn't because there was so much logistical interruption. It just wasn't possible. And company after company after company told me, much rather have an honest relationship than tell me what I want to hear. It's like being a parent.
Yeah.
Don't just tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me the truth. Do you think we'll be having the same conversation about engaging as human beings in 5 years or 10 years, or is it going to become machines talking to each other?
I absolutely think we're going to be talking about it in 5 or 10 years' time. I can't see the human need suddenly disappearing.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, it's all the new technology, all the new tools, all the digitalization is all about helping humans solve other humans' problems. It's the better in fact, it'll probably be more so. In 5 years' time, we'll probably have a greater need to be interacting as humans because the machines will be handling so much of the function side.
And James, to that point, and you look at the generations of staff that are coming through, and you think about the people that are on the teams of the businesses that we have. They think about what's going on in a more global way. They think,
and they're technology natives. They don't see it as a machine. They just work in amongst it easily. Yeah,
absolutely. But there is definitely a conscience there. And they're thinking about these things that affect supply chains, these ESG issues. And
It's been great talking to you. I really enjoyed the insights. Thank you so much. What's next for you?
What's next for me, James?
Just more of the same?
More of the same, James. I love working with the human side of business and using design and design practices to help businesses improve.
Well, I wish you all the best. I hope it's a success for you. It's been great having you on the show and having a chance to chat. And thank you so much for your insights. I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thanks, James. So lovely to be here and always great to have a chat.
Always. Well, that's it for another episode of Supply Circles. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Leanne. If you have any feedback on the conversation, on the topics we discussed, or even just want to give me some feedback, hit me up at james.scotland at aigroup.com.au. And we'll be back in a fortnight with more stories about building resilient and sustainable supply chains. I'm James Scotland. This is Supply Circles. Bye for now.